Welcome to Still Human, a biweekly podcast by Ocean Studio featuring thoughtful conversation with builders, creator, and thinker working with AI in real life. Rather than focusing on hype or optimization, we explore how technology affect our time, focus, and creativity and sense of self. And where being human still matter most. I'm your host, Perkin. Today, I'm joined by Toby Corey, a man who's been at the center of three technological revolutions: the internet boom, the clean energy transition, and now AI. He co-founded USWeb during the dot-com era, scaled it to $3 billion, then walked away right before the crash. He ran sales at SolarCity and Tesla Energies, where he turned around $100 million margin swing, but also had to lay off over 4,000 people. He later testified under oath about what was really happening behind the scene. And through it all, he developed something called Zentrepreneurship, a philosophy he taught at Stanford for 11 years about reconciling hypergrowth with consciousness. Toby, welcome to Still Human.
Wow, that is an amazing intro. I'm stoked to be here.
I hope it's everything accurate. I have questions for you. After 3 decades in tech, where do you feel most grounded these days?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think any gets to a point where you feel grounded. I mean, I think if you do that, then you really narrow life and it becomes really uninteresting. And
Yeah,
I think there's a deeper philosophical question here, which is, I think that in addition to these experiences, our, as a species, magical gift is creativity. And it is, as far as I know, our species is so far ahead of any other species. You know, we're like, what, 98% overlap with a chimpanzee? And look at the differences between these two species, right?
yeah,
And that goes back to like a deeper philosophical question of like, was there a big bang? Is there a God? Was there a source? Is there a source? What's the cosmos? And I think that it's creativity that's the magic, and it manifests itself in different ways. But that's what's made our species unique. I think that's what makes life really interesting if you're pushing the boundaries. And this goes back a long time. My father was a science teacher, and then he was a guidance counselor. He was always trying to be avant-garde. And I think this book's still relevant today. It's called What Color's Your Parachute? And it's all about kind of aptitude tests to figure out what's a good career path for you. Is it a particular discipline or a trade or what have you? And then we had I think a Commodore 64 computer. I'm really dating myself now. This is before we had personal computers.
Yeah.
And he had with a modem, that was the thing you plugged your phone into. We had this phone that hung on the wall.
Yeah.
You plugged it into these two holders. That was your modem. And then you had to really know how to use your computer so it would dial up some other computer somewhere else. Well, he found this other mainframe computer. And I remember taking that aptitude test online. And all of a sudden, I typed something and these characters would magically float on my screen.
Oh my God.
Magic.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Cool. Yeah.
Where's this coming from? This is crazy. And before that, I remember I had a CB back in the day. And that was kind of cool, but CBs are sort of around your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I guess it's just communication, whatever style it is. We're very social creatures. And then I didn't take my first programming course. I was an econ major to my junior year of college.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is going to change the world. I don't know how, but man, this is really cool stuff. And like anything, my daughter's really talented singer, songwriter. I can, I don't think I could hold a tune. And you find those things that you're passionate and excited about. So even though I've done I was at Cruise Foam for a time, we were trying to basically design a compostable foam that could replace styrofoam and polyethylene. SolarCity, I ran Tesla Energy. And I think at the heart of all of that, technology's always been at the heart of our species, just different forms of it, right? From, hey, the creation of fire, the creation of habitat and homes, the creation of agriculture, the Industrial Revolution, right? And all of that. So, I don't know, just sort of seeing things pop up on my screen after punching a few keys is kind of still cool.
That's a very chronological story you're coming out there, and I feel like this generation for us, we just immediately touching AI and stuff without those background and just accumulation of the history. We're missing a huge part of knowing how everything just come at us in our generation, and I think it's really valuable for this conversation.
Yeah, well, that's true too, and these conversations I love because they're basically cross-generational portals that I get to
Yeah.
look into and you get to look into, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
hey, like what knowledge have you acquired, Toby? And like what's interesting to me and my audience.
Yeah.
And on my side, it's like, hey, I'm looking at the future, like right
Mhm.
here. The questions that you're asking, what you think about the world. And that's really special. And that's what a lot of
Mhm.
life is, right? It's perspective and mindset. Entrepreneurship
Yeah.
is largely mindset, right? From an AI perspective, and I've made this prediction at Santa Clara University a couple of years ago, this will end up being the greatest innovation in the history of our species.
Mhm.
And it is going to touch everything everywhere. I don't think it replaces human beings, but
Mhm.
like everything, there's a reason why when you go get a cup of coffee, you jump in your car and you don't jump on a horse or go see a blacksmith, right?
Mhm.
The world changes, innovation changes. And I think what makes it exciting is when you can maybe see into the future a little bit, chase some of that, be working in something that you really like and really enjoy, and you're learning in, right? So, one of the success patterns I've seen is just insatiable intellectual curiosity,
Mhm.
and the other one, and actually this was corroborated by Forbes magazine and Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
and that they went out and did a study of like what is if you looked at one attribute really what makes people successful. And it'd be interesting. It wasn't EQ or IQ. It was this concept called open networks. And basically what that means is that the the richness of how I get educated, what I read, what I listen to, the types of people that I meet. And the game is to get as wide a spread of acculturation and
Mm.
interest. And that combination combined with intellectual curiosity and like a really good work ethic are really magical.
Yeah. 100%. I think you mentioned about how AI gonna change everything, and that perspective is really intriguing to me from your mouth. Not because that you have been going through all those technology advancement, but because I know you have been teaching this philosophy called Zentrepreneurship at Stanford for 11 years, which very focused on like human consciousness and stuff like that. I'm curious about your perspective on how AI gonna might affect that.
Yeah, I think it's going to actually supercharge it in a positive way. So, you know, I'm actually getting ready to do a LinkedIn post. And my last lecture at UCSC, I think students said, kind of, if you're looking forward, like where are the career opportunities? I said, well, let me actually break that down, famous Elon Musk style,
Mhm.
into first principles. And I said, I'm in the midst of a really cool startup. My company is going to look nothing like any other company in history. Our
Mhm.
organizational structure is going to be different. We're going to be an AI native organization. That's very different, like building an AI product.
Yeah.
And the underpinnings of that, I said to the students, like, let me tell you the three disqualifying questions in an interview, what anybody's going to ask that wants to get really great talent. Number one, do you use AI? You'd be surprised how many people don't. Um, you would be shocked. The second question is, okay, tell me how you use it and what you've learned, right? That shows me like how curious you are. What kind of creativity do you have? What kind of projects have you done, right? And
Yeah.
like, let's get into the meat on that question, right? Elon would hire somebody, literally be like, okay, what algorithm did you write? Let's get into the line of code. Like, did you really write this, right? Did you really do this work? And so that shows like intellectual curiosity, effort, creativity, and a number of signs that I want to hire like very high charge people. And then the third question is, okay, let's say you pass those two.
Mhm.
Convince me that you're going to use AI in an insanely magical way in this role I'm hiring you into. Those are
Yeah.
the new table stakes, right? So
Yeah.
it is. Like I said, I guess I am a restless soul. I love advancement. I love innovation. And this is like, kind of my third wave, right? I got to ride basically the start of the PC revolution, where there's a PC
Yeah.
on everyone's desk,
Yeah.
the web in a massive way. Got to build a company, 5,000 people operating in 17 countries around the world, billion in
Yeah.
revenue, profitable. That started with two guys in a 17-page business plan and a check from SoftBank.
Yeah.
Um, but as big as those waves are, they're dwarfed by what's happening now.
Mhm.
And and it's like basically anything. Sure, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be trade-offs with every innovation. Like airplanes are great. So somebody fly them into the Twin Towers in New York City. We still fly on planes, right? You can
Yeah.
always misuse innovation. That's never going to go away.
Yeah.
Can we be smart about it? Yeah, absolutely. It's a very powerful technology. I'm sure that's what they said when humans created fire. Be careful with it. Um, but I think that it has the shape of insane creativity and doing things you never thought possible. And even now, I look at like in one, it takes context, it takes sort of institutional knowledge if you're going to use it right. It's like anything. Everyone can use a circular saw. It doesn't mean you can do like finished carpentry work in my kitchen.
Hmm.
And so the more you get to use and understand that tool, like anything else, it will supercharge you. It will
Right.
supercharge your
Right.
learning. It will supercharge your contribution. And now, like the work I've done early on as the product guy, work with my engineers, my ability to research things of like deep technical depth, it would have taken me weeks to do what I was able to do in an afternoon. Again, you have to know what you're doing. You've got to have context because AI chat can also take you other places that it
Hallucinate.
doesn't have that context or relevancy, right?
Yeah.
So that in and of itself, I remember like delivering that one, just what I could research, the product requirements that I wrote, and the information architecture I handed over to my engineers. They're like, we've never seen product requirements documents and information architectures
Hmm.
as insanely great as these, right? And then
Hmm.
the software used to be developed in sprints. You use like Jira, you wrote stories, agile development, you got each story had a point, and then they would basically go like, okay, how many points can we get in this 2 week sprint? Check-ins. Like sprints now happen in an afternoon.
Yeah.
So a big part of this product I'm developing, it was done last night with me and my engineer iterating. I don't know, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tomorrow, I got up, had a team meeting in the morning, and everyone's like, "Where the fuck did this come from?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tom and I sat down and like, got that completely coded and working, right?
Yeah. I completely feel that like AI supercharged us for people who are actively trying new things, and there's AI tools coming out every day. And if you like, I'm just really like shocked when like people tell me they are not using AI right now, or they are not trying to do project or start
Yeah.
learning something. Because I think like this is the first time in human history that everyone gonna to be able to do anything as long as you have the courage, you have the idea, the creativity to just step forward and start executing, start iterating, just trying to do stuff. But
Yeah, and
it's
here's the
yeah.
analogy, like I said, it's only as good as how well you understand it and know it and can use it, right?
Mhm.
And man, if you do, as from a professional, a learning, creativity standpoint, it's we're in the unimaginable state. Like
Yeah.
we're just the very, very beginning of that, right? And it's no different than, going back, few hundred years, people would walk around and then they all of a sudden, oh, I could ride a horse. So like
Yeah.
little effort and go farther, right? And that sort
Yeah.
of concept, like smaller effort, go farther, right? And if you're intellectually curious and really hungry, you know, I literally can't imagine doing my work without it.
Yeah.
That's how powerful this tool is and how productive it is and how fast I can learn, how fast I can research, how fast I can apply it.
Yeah. And I also have a question on AI in business and AI in the context of education is quite different. In the context of business, it speed up people productivity. It helps business to move faster and reduce costs massively. But in terms of education, there's like a ethical use, and I think as a school, it's always very difficult to incorporate that AI component into the education system. And what's your perspective or your thought on teaching
I don't know.
students?
I think it's an over-engineered problem. I
Mm.
think it's fucking really easy because
Mhm.
look at I taught at Stanford for 11 years, right? And
Yeah.
like I got a great lesson. So one of the professors that brought me in there, she basically like, 'cause I'm kind of like, if I'm working with people, I want everyone to do well. And she's like, look, or you run a business, you want everyone to do well. She's like, look, teaching's a little bit different.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a third of the group that doesn't care about anything anyway, and maybe half to the upper third will. So just focus on that upper third, right? Because they will listen to you and you can move them and actually be impactful versus that bottom third, which doesn't care, doesn't want to be there at all. And it sort of goes with like it's a lot of life lesson. Life's going to get you what you put into it.
Right.
And it sounds like super pedestrian, but we're all going to have ups and downs. We're these biological creatures. We have a fixed time on this planet. No one knows the meaning of life. What's in the afterlife, and all of those things, right? So if you want to cheat, you want to be lazy, you're
Hmm.
just hurting yourself, right? So I think that too much work on the policing and the guardrails versus that, and I don't think it ever replaces a teacher. I just have such unique experiences that live in my consciousness. It's the greatest. David Chalmers said the greatest problem in humanity is like, what is consciousness? Where does it exist? How does
Hmm.
it manifest itself? Like, it is insanely cool. Teaching, if you're a good teacher, can apply those and bring those where AI or a machine is never going to be able to do, right? And that gets into like, you know, s- quantum mechanics and like this entire new realm where things can be particle, things can be wave, connects with a couple cool psychedelic journeys I've been on. But figure out how to inspire people, how to drive more intellectual curiosity, sh- good shared experience combined with this amazing tool,
Hmm.
and how to supercharge folks to basically be a better human being, get them better set up for a great career, or if they're going to become entrepreneurs, be better entrepreneurs, better lawyers, better doctors. And I think that's it, and like this is really ties to the second law of thermodynamics, right? Entropy. And like all things, structures come together and all of them disintegrate and then reform. This planet we're on right now, a few billion years from now, our sun will 100% supernova. It will
Hmm.
obliterate everything in this solar system, everything. It will show up in new gases, new particles, reformation, and who knows what's going to get formed of it, right? But then structure will occur and entropy will occur. And then that cycle, and I guess I'm more on the entropy side because it's
Yeah.
a lot more fun. It's a
Yeah.
lot more disruptive.
I like how you zoom out. Like our entire lifetime is like very short and compared to the developments of the entire universe. Um, I feel like
It's
I'm getting.
insanely short.
I feel
It's
like I'm.
insanely short. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm
I mean,
getting a free lecture, like a free lecture from Stanford. That
I
is
did
so
enjoy,
nice.
but that also goes to my point, which was the first 9 years were
Yeah.
truly amazing. We had a guy there. I don't know what's the head person, the chancellor or provost or what have you.
Yeah.
But anyway, John Hennessy was so creative. He was an Intel engineer back in the day, and all he really did was understand like my institution will be great if I have the most amazing instructors, right?
Mm.
Everyone can do a trig course
Right.
or a physics course or what have you.
Yeah.
And when you make those people feel really good, unleash them from any sort of like stupid guardrails and allow that energy and those learnings and those stories and those perspectives to resonate in a really powerful way. You walk away and go, wow, like, and that's what, I still have relationships with so many of my students. They'll call me. It's back over now 15 years. And in the last 2 years, honestly, like leadership change, the department leadership change, and more red tape, fill out more forms. And that's when I left. And everyone's like, oh my God, like, wow, that's such a prestigious job.
Yeah.
I don't care about prestige, right? And like, am I having fun? Am I having the impact that I want? Is this a valuable use of my time? And do I
Yeah.
enjoy it? And if you think about it, that is the only real thing that you have is time. And guess what? It is fixed. There's a beginning and a middle and an end to everybody's life. There's been about 100 billion humans before us. And I don't know anyone that's come back from the dead and talked about it, right? I love Oscar Wilde. Be yourself because everyone else is taken, right?
Mm.
And so that means that I think about where's my time going? It's an investment. What am I getting out of it?
Yeah.
Or right. And then so I'm thoughtful about that because it is like the most important asset that you have, right? And there'll be things like I'll start things that I thought I was going to become a famous like haiku poet. Tried that. I'm like, I'm mediocre at this thing. But I'm always going to experiment and try new things, read new things, really expand my mind, expand my horizons. And that's, I think, once you start falling into the trap of being a human and life's dogma, you're just walking in someone else's path.
Yeah,
How fun is
exactly.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
No, man, like
agree.
there's infinite paths. I want to
Yeah,
cut my own through all the forts, the ups and the downs, and the warts and the ugliness, and the trials and trauma along the way.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of path, I'm kind of jumping around right now.
Mm,
Speaking of path, I'm really curious about like you testify under the oath that solar roof tile Elon Musk showed to investor were fake,
yeah.
that nothing was connected to the grid. Can you walk me through that moments? What actually in your mind and how does that feel like? Help us to relive the moments.
I've never told this story on a podcast, so you're going to be the first one. It's no surprise Elon is impossible to work for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, um, when I was an entrepreneur, I had such deep respect for his entrepreneurial skills, his business acumen. It was second to none. Probably one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's in a different political sphere right now that I'm not. Having
Hmm.
said that, like most people that directly reported to him, it never ends well. It just is what it is. And what's funny was after I left the last day of June 2017, I left Tesla. And let's see here. I hadn't talked to him. Weren't speaking. And basically, let's see, July 3rd, my wife, before that, my wife had a fibroid removed. That was a generating fibroid.
Hmm.
And the day before July 4th, July 3rd, we got test results that it was, and my wife's doing great, by the way, a really bad cancer diagnosis of which there
Hmm.
was no cure. So that obviously is like very devastating news on so many different levels. And so obviously didn't sleep at all that night and just trying to figure out, good Lord, what just happened here? And I got up at 5 after, I don't know, maybe I caught like 20 minutes of sleep. And I emailed Elon at 5:01. I said, hey, you traffic in really exotic circles. My wife's just been diagnosed with very rare cancer. If you know of anyone that you could connect me to, would be greatly appreciated. I didn't really expect a response. And at 5:05, 4 minutes later, here's 5 people you should get in touch with. And so, despite all of that, um, there's human experience are so amazing and so raw, and for that, I have you know very deep respect for him and the fact that he took time to do that. Again, I couldn't be more divergent from his political views. Um, but at the time, what he's being persecuted because he's trying to innovate. 4 million new roofs go on homes every single year. It's probably more than that right now. And the person's trying to bring clean energy into the world. And like all early projects, they're in very innovative state. I've seen it all along, right? And you've got to paint a vision of the future to excite your employees, excite investors, and the piece that's most important is like, okay, was that genuine or was that just a pack of lies? And it was genuine. Like we had a big team, and today there's still a solar roof team.
Hmm.
Turns out it's a really, really hard problem to solve. Just the construction side of it, the manufacturing side of that, getting your payback on the investment that you're going to make. It was just a really hard problem that he's still actually working on to today. So,
Hmm.
I think like anything, I had was subpoenaed, and lawfully I have to go in there and testify, and I, supported the reason for buying Tesla and the Tesla or SolarCity and the SolarCity merger.
Hmm.
And even going back, like when I first started at SolarCity, Elon was our largest shareholder, chairman of the board. And it makes sense if you have an electric car, why wouldn't you have PV solar on your home, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And and I think had they taken a little different path, it would have been a different story because if you basically just allow the Powerwall to be only bundled, you could buy it separately, bundled together with Tesla Solar and an EV charging in your vehicle. Like, what a combination. Think like back in the day, you were too young, but Microsoft used to sell their applications separate. You'd buy Windows operating system, and then you'd buy a word processor. That all comes integrated in one. So
Mm.
imagine kind of the electrification of your house and having like really smart products, everything from my battery backup generator, my PV, my Tesla charging, a new generation of heat pumps, etc., that are all integrated in,
Hmm.
really smart. Helping to use less electricity and help generate clean electricity, and that's what's cool about. The other thing that I remember with Elon, sitting back with him way back in the day, Draper Fisher in the early 2000s put a ton of money into clean tech and got their doors blown in. They were just too early. But
Yeah.
also, what really resonated with me when I talked to Elon, he said, Toby, nobody's going to buy inferior products that cost more. And it's like, yeah, he's fucking right. Why am I going to buy an inferior product that costs me more? So the challenge, like I say, and all these climate tech folks that are whining, like, go out. It's hard, but you signed up for it, right? Don't expect consumers to accept shittier products that cost more, or don't be an entrepreneur. And it's like entrepreneurship isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
When I would start every single class, I'd say at the end of this class, three things are going to be true. Either you're going to be like, thank God I took this course. I never want to be an entrepreneur. This is not my cup of tea. Wow, it looks glamorous from the outside. Number two, like, this sounds really cool, but not at this stage of my career, maybe later. Or
Yeah.
three, I'm all in, man. Like, this just reinforced that this is what I want to do, right? And so, if you're cut from that cloth, creativity is a really powerful thing, and let the markets adjudicate. And guess what? It will smooth things out.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking back to that testimony, do you feel like relief or regret or something else?
No, I feel like anything, it was a moment in time, and I feel I delivered the truth.
Hmm.
And that can be certain, it's my truth. And that's what I believe in my heart. And either, words are very subjective,
Yeah.
interpretations are very
Yeah.
subjective human qualities, right? And it was like, that's what I saw, that's what I believed, and that was a testimony that I gave,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to not get intimidated by lawyers and getting subpoenaed and all of that, it's part of life. And it's also like, yeah, like the experiences that I've had are absolutely insane. And it
Yeah.
goes back to, I read Osho's book called Fear. By the way, if you haven't seen Wild Country on Netflix, watch it.
Okay.
A famous Indian guru, and he spent a lot of time like Ram Dass with people that were on their deathbed in their last breaths.
Hmm.
And he said it was a painful time because obviously there's an insane amount of hysteria, fear, and a lot of regret. Oh my God, I should have done this and that. And he said, my takeaway from the one thing that you can control is like no regrets. And regrets, let me further explain that term. It doesn't mean, oh, I've made mistakes. I have, but the regret of not doing something, that's the regret that I'm talking about. Of course, I've made mistakes. Of course, I'm imperfect. Of course, if I could go back through a time machine, there's a lot of things that I would do differently.
Hmm.
But I don't have any regrets of like the decisions that I've made, the risks that I've taken in life, the kinds of experiences that I've been able to, some intentional, some unintentional, and ride those waves, right? And so, again, boiling down to, I think, just my love of entrepreneurship, because especially in this day and age, we're in a really bad time of like completely um, toxic and destructive government, and all the people around there that are getting rich, and a few hundred people control the entire world, 9 billion people, and you're never going to change anything from the top.
Yeah.
So come back to entropy, come back to new grass shoots, create really interesting value propositions,
Mm.
create a movement, and change the world, right? And that's my belief, is that your generation tends to be, I don't know where this originated, but orders of magnitude more altruistic.
Oh,
And yes, you want to get ahead. You care about yourself. You care about the kind of life you have, the kind of home you're going to live in, the kind of car you're going to drive, kind of income you want to have, right? All of that. And I think that, at the end of the day, that opportunity to, when your time comes, look back and go, man, I had no regrets. And that's a really powerful. And if I were to die after this podcast, it'd be like, oh man, like what an amazing life, right? And tomorrow, I'm like, yeah, no days are like a 13 out of a 10, but it's like, I don't want to like, oh, I should have did this or should have that. I want to make smart decisions. I don't want to make stupid ones.
Yeah.
But you know, make life gets interesting when you throw a little risk into a little risk and mystery into the equation. Like, I don't know, fear of the unknown is not a good thing. Could
Yeah.
be. Sometimes it's not. Mhm.
I heard this quote before too. If you were to die tomorrow, what do you want to do? And like, do you have any regret for your previous life? It's very interesting, but kind of coming back to the questions where, the second time where you're back to Tesla, you lay off like 4,000 people and they lost their job. Do you know like how you carry that kind of feelings, like you have to do that,
Yeah.
that decision.
So that's not in everyone's DNA. And I remember, you know, wanting to excel, whatever I do, I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. Otherwise, it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
That meant the sports I played, career choices. And when started as a software test engineer, then I became a software engineer. And my inside joke is we're hiring a bunch of people from MIT. My
Mm,
math's okay. It's not MIT okay. And I was like an average programmer at best. And I'm like, I may be able to get like above average. Like, good Lord, who wants to live a life of above average? So
yeah.
anyway, like I found good mentors throughout my career. At the time, I'm a VP of our department. Used to work for Atari back in the day, and I said, "Man, I'm really frustrated. I think I can become better at software engineering, but I'm not going to be like top 10%." And he's like, "What do you want to do with your life, Toby?" So I want to start my own company someday. So he's like, "Great, go be a product manager." It's like a mini CEO. You got to define like an unmet need, build product requirements. You got to understand how to work with your sales team, your marketing team, how to market it, support all of that, right? And it was just like
Mhm.
amazing advice and training ground. And that sort of then, led up to so as you start to move up in your career, individual contributor, then you got to be a manager. You got to manage people. And then that role usually gets bigger and bigger when you become a VP, a director and VP. And I think like there's a set of everything in life is a game, right? Capitalism is a game. And so if you want to be successful at a game, learn how to play the game really well. And unfortunately, the thing around capitalism is basically one thing: value creation. That's
Yeah.
why you're there, and that's why you are being paid. Otherwise, go work in a nonprofit, go teach surf somewhere, or what have you. So, if you're not cut out for that, then you're basically going to be hurting the company that you're working for. Now, not to say like sometimes bad decisions aren't made. And it's never a fun thing. The first time I had to do it, it took me 2 weeks to get the courage off to lay off my first person back in, I don't know, 1991, 1992.
Yeah.
And then like I still hate it to this day, but there's a way like anything in life to do it with class and dignity.
Mhm.
And that's why, like, what good leaders do is tell me when I'm off base, praise me on the great things that I'm doing, inspire me, right? Lead by example, uh, help me learn, help me develop, help me stretch my boundaries. And when you're honest with people, and I've had to let people go for cause, right? It's usually not a surprise. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk. And sometimes, like, there's something really bad going on in my life. I can't mentally focus. Or they're a really good person, but they're not like sales isn't their talent, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might be in like admin or HR, right? Or legal.
Yeah.
So I think the key of it is like it's never fun. Being on the other side of that is not good. But unfortunately, like illness, like death, like illness, and everything else in life, it's just it's one of those troughs, like you have peaks and troughs, right? As you go
Mhm.
through life.
Mhm.
And that's the game. Like that's capitalism. And
Yeah.
I think like I've tried everything that I do, like, how do I get better? What are the tricks of the trade? Whether I learned how to surf or when I started wrestling
Mm.
in high school and etc. So I think it's again, like everything in life comes down to mindset.
Mhm.
And I try to focus on things in my control, things that I can shape, and things I can't. Sure, there are days when, like, maybe I'm down, maybe not feeling that great, something's bothering me, but you just got to shake yourself off. Otherwise, it becomes your reality. You're going to drown in it, right? And everyone's got their own way of dealing with, all of the bumps of life's journey. And, one, it sucks. And two, It's part of playing the game.
Mm. I recently read this book called The Courage to Be Disliked.
Hmm.
It was talking
I just
about,
read that too.
oh
It's a
yeah,
great book.
life is simple, right?
Yeah, yeah, and like no one's ever 100% of the people aren't going to like you ever.
Yeah,
And like, but the more you dwell on letting your ego drive that, sorry for yourself, people don't like me, and like it's normal. I'm human. I still have a chip on my shoulder. Like I want my new startup to be really successful. I'm working really
yeah,
hard to try and solve that, right?
yeah,
But when you start to feel like there's the way to think about this is there's what's called noise, which is basically just fuzz or friction, and then there's signals. So
yeah.
I try to find the signals, right? And what can I learn from this and let the rest of the stuff, diffuse into the cosmos somewhere.
So interesting. The noise and signal. I've been hearing this, like how people phrase this era so much right now. Like the noise and the signal. You're trying to find the signal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have a questions on about Zentrepreneurship you taught. You codified 21 principle of Zentrepreneurship. If you could just keep one, only one, the one that got on you through the hardest moments, which one would it be?
Uh, Create your own path.
Create your own path.
Yeah.
Why so?
Because uh, why do you want to follow in someone's footsteps? Your life is so short and it's so limited, and you're going to walk in someone else's path.
Hmm.
Um, Seems really boring to me. Not sure why I would want to do that. Even if you
Yeah.
walk partly on someone's path for a ways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and just come back to that Osho quote, right? You're on your
Hmm.
deathbed and you have massive regrets. Like I took the safe way out. I took the safe thing. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that makes the transition to what's next just that phase harder.
Hmm.
When it's difficult as it is, because typically your body's breaking down, um, you're in pain or you're heavily sedated, can't really move around. So I would imagine it's a very high time of deep introspection.
Okay, that's a really good take on that one. Um, and I think entrepreneurship, from what I read, it's very focused on consciousness. And what if happened to have those founders who never learned to integrate their, consciousness into their execution? What does that look like?
So I think they all do, but in different ways and
Okay.
manifest itself differently. So the core framework of entrepreneurship. So think of a three-dimensional graph, a cube, an
Mm-hmm.
x-axis, a y-axis, and a z-axis.
Mm-hmm.
On the x-axis, I'm going to start there, which is consciousness, and it's always there. If I told you to close your eyes and go back in time 10 years, 15 years, the first memory you have of your bedroom, and I asked you, like, do you have carpeting on the floor? Was there a desk? Do you remember a bedspread, a bureau? You would remember everything. Where does that exist? What is that? All of those subjective qualities, right? And so there's a lot of science that's tied to that and to creativity. And basically, your brain works in 5 major brain state waves, right? So delta is very deep sleep. Theta is kind of REM, where you're in and out, like you might have taken a nap, you sort of wake and go back into sleep. Those are not typically conscious states.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 conscious states of mind, and they have different wavelength patterns to them. We spend most of our time in beta. Beta waves are very choppy. It's like I have my Slack app up, my emails up. I have 72 tabs and 6 browsers up, and I'm context switching, and that is a lot of like how humans live their life today. There's zero
Mm-hmm.
creativity there. It's also very unhealthy if you're constantly staying in that state because you're worried about this, you're worried about that. I didn't get that done. Your body starts secreting cortisone, which over time creates inflammatory problems. You get out of somatic uh, sync with your biorhythm and bioclock, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy for your mind, and it's not healthy for your body. And it's
Mm-hmm.
certainly not healthy for your quality of state. Then there's 2 interesting states of consciousness. One is alpha. These are long rolling waves.
Yeah.
A lot of times this comes from people like meditation, although transcendental meditation claims that they can get you into the last state, which I'll talk about in a second, which is gamma waves. And those alpha waves are just maybe taking a walk. I get to live, I'm looking at the ocean right now, just walking on the beach, feeling the wave, the energy of the wave roll up on my ankles and roll back. I get this feeling of like the ocean brings me clean energy. When it recedes, it's taking away old energy, right? And little sort of idioms that we all do. Those are really relaxed waves. The more interesting one is gamma. So they are smooth waves, but they're much tighter and compact. This is when you are in the zone, and it's insanely helpful, and it's insanely creative. And for me, um, I'm getting better at meditation, but get myself relaxed down to the office, like just taking a walk, getting my dog. There's an ocean and a lake next to me, is kind of journeying through there, really relaxing, right? Um, when I surf, I'm 100% generating gamma waves up the wazoo because I have a blue mind, that coursing of the energy of no laptop, no cell phone, no nothing, me, a board, and infinite ocean. And these insane energy resonance vibrations of the wave. And I'm like riding it and I feel part of it. And I feel like infinity with the ocean. Like it's hard to put into human words other than like, I just like think of like, if I took a salt cube and threw it in the ocean, just dissolved and became part of the ocean. That's how I feel when I'm surfing. It's that unbelievable. So part of it is like one, that's when you're most creative. That's when your mind can really expand. And so expanding along that dimension, right? I happen to like Terrence McKenna, Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, Sam Harris, a number of others that really expand my mind, and my consciousness gets into, varying levels of just relaxation. My brain waves get into a state where I continue to think expansion. So it's a function of time, how much time I'm spending on that spectrum of my life. And
Mhm.
what am I doing to generate that? The y-axis is quite interesting, which is knowledge. What's knowledge? Well, access to information that you can turn and use. It turns into wisdom or knowledge, right? And so that is a factor of open networks that I talked about earlier, which is how many new and unique people are you meeting? What types of things are you reading? What types of things are you listening to? What types of things are you seeing? And it's a function of physics. So creativity comes from the amount of unique data points that you can get in your sphere of consciousness. And a lot of times it's like, oh, creativity comes from connecting two disparate parts, or two disparate parts and something new I just learned right now, right? And life basically does the opposite to you. You should become a human being. Human beings do X, Y, and Z. Human beings live by these rules. This is a reality that gets shaped, and you just accept that. And life gets really boring. And what happens to your brain is that the magic of creativity also manifests itself in your neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity basically is you have like 86 billion neurons in your brain, and synapses, and these strange chemical electrical signals are firing into different regions and to do different things. So what happens is that in your early days, your neuroplasticity is very wide and very active. And over life, and this guy, David Eagleman, is a famous neuroscientist, spoke in my class at Stanford one time, and showed a study from Harvard going back where like 98% of every human being, by the time they get in their 60s, they have lost 60% of their neuroplasticity or more. Because
Mhm.
what happens is that your body basically is designed to be very efficient. So if you start doing something, then that chemical signal basically, it's like dirt bike riding and a groove trail. And actually, like what happens is like mylar forms around those neurons to make the signal faster and deeper because, oh, this is an important thing, right? And and then your neuroplasticity starts to erode because you're not using it. And what happens is just think about life. And that's where social media contributes to the problem. If you go on LinkedIn and you just like randomly request 100 people to connect with you, if enough people say they don't know you, LinkedIn will generate a message to you saying, don't reach out to people you don't know. When the exact opposite should be true. These social graphs get created. And they just basically make us hate each other more deeply as Americans. Oh, you're a conservative? Here's more of the shit we're going to give you. Oh, you're a liberal? Here's more of the shit we're going to give you to reinforce us, because like more eyeballs, more animation, more money, right? And it's a massive like psyop, man, psychology operations. And what Democrats are, what Republicans are showing Democrats is the worst of the worst Democrats. What Democrats show Republicans are the worst. So it's like, it's not a representation. These are the
Yeah.
fringes, but we animate each other. We think and its beliefs get deeper and deeper and more locked in. And
Mhm.
then like every day I get up like, wow, I've got the same thoughts because I do the same things. I have the same reactions. And because my neuroplasticity is eroding.
Mhm.
And that's not the kind of life I want to live. And so that part of that is keeping that neuroplasticity and expanding. Same thing with social media. Like, so I purposely will consume different types of YouTube videos, media, people that I will listen to, talk to, start reading books on, right? And all of that. And then that basically sets you up for the Z dimension, which is basically like what you produce, like your work product, right? Whether it's a paper, an algorithm that you wrote, or what have you, and like being the best at that, right? I've seen it. Like I've been to restaurants where the waiter or waitress like literally is amazing. Like I would hire that person pretty much to any job in my company because
Mhm.
they're that dedicated to the work. My experience was so good. And or a software engineer or a product manager or someone working for a nonprofit, right? And that's like what you find is kind of taking some of those principles and applying from the way that works to you, um, is kind of, it's magical if you use it right, right? So the magic is there. Like the majesty of an amazing life is all there, and understanding that it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be shaped by what you think, right?
Mhm.
And what you think is going to create your reality no matter what. So I also, when I talk and lecture, what I want people to walk away with is I'm not like a Tim Ferriss guy, a Peter Thiel guy, or Tony Robbins. Like, do these 10 things. Well, I'm like, you shouldn't do anything. What I hope to do is just do one thing: expand your thinking, expand your consciousness. That's all. Like, oh, Toby said some really interesting things. Like, what does that mean, right? And my goal, my bet is this: the only way we're going to change the world and start to solve some of these problems is to get new companies, new leaders, right? Your generation. And so the reason why I'll spend time talking to you or talking to other students is I'm just planting seeds, man. And I hope someday you maybe grow up, start a really great company, treat people really well, and make a positive contribution to the world. And that's really cool, right? And that's all. Like, don't take away anything other than like, oh, maybe connect a couple separate dots. This was interesting. Oh, Toby said I should do these 5 things. Like, no, then you missed the whole point of my lecture today, right?
Mhm.
And that's that's what makes life go round.
I think the entire thing that you just said is actually expanding my thinking so much and beyond. Um, yeah, it's incredible. I think last time when we at your the beach house at Santa
The
Cruz.
Tea Party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
tea party. We did the meditation and it briefly expand the three-dimensional on the whiteboard. I
Yep.
wasn't really clear because it was just a graph and a couple,
Yeah.
XYZ, and there's a lot of people trying to talk with you. I didn't really have a chance to really soak in the idea. But right now I really get the idea. Not I didn't get the idea, but like, I see the picture and get me really thinking about this right now. And
Yeah. It's a conceptual image, right? So, and sometimes like conceptual images also should be things where they're disposable, like everything in life. It works
yeah,
till it doesn't. And
yeah.
I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly reinventing, right? And that's why like entrepreneurship is really about unlocking that creativity. But it's also the same of like, it's what I call, grace and grit. Like it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm this like super chill entrepreneur guy and I run my company and we're in at like 10:30 for crumpets and tea. And then like, oh, I got a foosball table in the back. Like that's not it at all. But it's
Mhm.
like deeply connecting with your soul and finding that, putting that energy into those things that are really important where you want to make a difference. And if I were to sum it up, philosophy looks like this. So as I look at the world, I go, okay, I believe that our most important mission here is to ensure that we are creating more opportunities for future generations to come.
Mhm.
Guess what? We're not. We're creating more fucking problems. And that's why I look at that and I don't like that, right? So all and like no one person's really gonna like change that paradigm. However,
Mm,
if you play a little bit of chess versus checkers, conversations I'm having with you right now, my Stanford students, my UCSC students, etc., people that are going to listen to this, it's like, man, like dream big, right? And there's nothing that is impossible in life if you want to set your mind to that. So what I try to do is like I do this to try to expand thinking, expand consciousness in hopes that we're planting seeds that will go on to make a difference in the world where that paradigm does change, where a generation actually starts to create more opportunities, not complete destruction and depletion of all of our natural resources, unsustainable environment,
mm,
um, the dislocation of wealth. Like there's so many things
yeah,
that need to be addressed, but there are always going to be problems. It's a shame we seem to have been kind of stuck right now, and we're going pretty fast in reverse. But
yeah.
you never give out hope, and that point is like important because to all your listeners out there, like I always had a learning disability, and it manifested itself in comprehension,
Mm,
and had to go like in spelling, and I tutored like in fourth grade. I went to parochial schools my entire career until I got to college, St. Rose and East Catholic High School, and I remember it manifested itself in just not good test taking ever. So not good SAT scores, etc. And instead of like letting that bother me, it's like I didn't go to Yale. I basically started my own company, massively successful, took it public, did things that nobody has done. I never ran a professional services company, everything, all the things that I've done. I taught at Stanford for 11 years. I was an executive at Tesla. I'm working on something really cool now, right? Like I just don't see barriers.
mm.
Um, I see lots of opportunity in a time where I should like wide lens, narrow lens focus, and allowing all of that to play with itself in a really creative way. And life gets interesting.
What do you think is the most key feature or like key personality that being as entrepreneur, help you to become a successful entrepreneur? One feature, one characteristic.
So the one feature and from everything that I've learned, there's a lot has to happen, like at the right time of the market.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a factor out of your control. But the things that are in your control um, boil down to this. When Bill Clinton ran for office, the economy wasn't doing well. George H.W. Bush was in office, and his tagline was, "It's the economy, stupid."
Mm,
That was it. And everyone resonated with that. Oh yeah, I can understand. What a great marketing slogan. Like the economy does suck. Um, and then after like teaching entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, you're sort of taught like, oh, all these things that have to happen, but it boils down to one thing. And I'll illustrate the story in a minute. But the punchline is it's the product, stupid. And
mm,
what I mean by that is like when I worked at Tesla, one, there's a lot of very smart people that work there, like insanely smart. So
mm.
even when people leave, it's still going to attract like pretty insane talent. And everyone there is working like 75 hours is like a short week. Like you kind of shorted it this week, man. Um, so with the amount of turnover there of really talented people, if you went back, like took a class in Harvard on like, hey, how detrimental churn is of good employees, no company could survive that level of churn from those talented
Mm,
employees. And I'm like,
mm,
fuck, why is that so true? Like he's defying gravity. You know why? Because the product is so fucking good,
mm.
and it meets their needs. They buy it. Not only understand like what they want, what people need. Like when Steve Jobs invented this little guy here, no one was running around saying, "I need a computer that runs in the palm of my hand. I need a computer that runs in the palm of my hand." He knew what people would need living a digital lifestyle to make
Yeah.
their time more productive, more efficient, more conveniences in life, and all of the things that go with that, right? So stress over creating an amazing product that blows your customers away, that solves a real pain point for them, not a nice to have, um, a new CRM system
Can
or
you say
what
that
have
again?
you.
Can you repeat that sentence again?
Yeah, focus on delivering a product that blows your customers away, that they can't live without, right? And the reason why Tesla is so powerful because it's not because it's electric,
Mm,
because they've transformed the driving experience. It is an amazing innovation. It drives itself. Yes, like it's electric, which means
mm,
it performs insanely well. It's well built. Like the experience I get with that, that's why like no one is running around. I need my electric car, I need my electric car. Where is it? Right. So like when you build amazing products, right, that people love and solves a real problem for them, just focus there. Like a lot of other things can go wrong, but I'll tell you right now, if that is not correct, you will never be successful. I don't care how good your CEO is, your CTO is, how much money you've raised, none of that matters, right?
Mm.
And that's really like that's the art of entrepreneurship. And being able to understand how to bring an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of focus, being able to go wide lens, narrow lens, integrating the magic of your team, the different personalities. Like, how do we focus on making sure that we have built something that is so fundamentally awesome that solves a real need for my customer? What I'm doing right now, that's all I focus on. But it's like the world's changing. People aren't going to websites for discovery anymore.
Yeah.
They're staying. The new interface to the web is your favorite AI chat. And so the old days, what happened in the last 25 years? Google ran the world and printed money. You would spend enormous amounts of money on SEO and third-party corroboration. The list goes on. And they would arbitrarily decide, like, okay, I'm going to generate a list, a page, and then I'm going to stack rank organic links and paid links. And then you pay for a lot to get in there. Then user clicks on a link and goes to the website and consumes the brand.
Yeah.
That is gone, right? So now the interface to the web is AI. So as a company and a brand, how do I connect my brand to AI discovery?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the new interface, that's the top of my funnel becoming a more and more larger portion. That's kind of actually an interesting problem to solve, right? That's why I'm really excited about what we're doing, because it's a big problem. The market is right. What do I spend my time every day on the product? I'm either talking to a beta customer, or I'm talking to my engineer, or I'm talking to my UX UI designer. I'm pulling up screens. I'm putting them in Figma. I'm literally at that level, right? And if I need new requirements, I'm running those. And like all I do, I get feedback, and then, but not just like what you want. It's like, what do they need, right? And those are two different things. And create an amazing experience that goes, wow, like I can measure the effectiveness of your product because I'm showing up in certain prompts where I should be showing up, right?
That's really a lot of thing I have to take in, and I think this is the one of the most knowledge I learned from a single podcast. Before we continue, I have a question passed to you from our previous guest, William Norton, an engineer who refused to trust code he hasn't written himself. He asked, "What do you think about creating AI that augments or contribute and improve human capability as opposed to replace it? What do you think about that, and do you care about that?"
I do. I think again, with what happens is in a time of entropy, things are being reconstituted, and that's all we're in. We're in that cycle right now. Not everyone's skills transfer, and sometimes because you don't want to get educated, you don't have the means to get educated, you don't have the spirit to get educated. And I'm like, even now, like I'm constantly reinventing myself. I'm 64 years old, and I'm like, a 19, 20-year-old with a new AI infrastructure startup that I'm working on, like tirelessly, like learning, like understanding AI at all the different facets of it, like technically how it's doing what problem I'm trying to solve, how I'm going to do that, right? It's no different than going back to my first job out of college, right? You need that same energy, you need that same spirit. I get to do it now with kind of more expanded consciousness, with more data points, hopefully like not making mistakes I made before, and also learning new things. And it's not learning, okay, what experiences are helpful here? How do I blend those two where 1 + 1 = 3, right? So like it's a certain thing like cars got invented, right? Fossil fuels. You're not going to stop that. So how do I shape that for good? And then you do that by working for the right types of companies, starting something else, and what is going to be my contribution to sort of shape things in a way that I think are good for the world, right? And unfortunately, you're going to have good and bad, like anything new, like those cycles. There's always going to be abuse of innovation, and I think you can either get stuck down there. It's like glass half full or glass half empty.
Yeah.
Mine is overflowing, right? But my feet are also on the ground. I can distort reality pretty good, but if you get too far distorted, too far away, sometimes that jades your ability to be a good entrepreneur.
That's very a good answer that I'm looking for. Like I've been trying to think on this question on my own. I couldn't come up with a good one, and I really like that response. So before we close, I ask every guest this. If you could leave one question for our next guest, someone else navigating AI and what it is mean to be human, what would you ask them?
Uh, you know what? I'm going to get slightly philosophical. There's this really insane poet um, named James McCrae, and he wrote an amazing poem. I don't have time to read it, but it's called Instructions Before Visiting Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is like, man, write your answer to that question. That would be really interesting.
Now I have to look it up like on that poem myself. Okay.
I'd
Um,
read it, but I think it'll be better for you and your listeners to if it calls to you, you will look it up and you will read it. If it doesn't call to you, then it won't.
okay. So as we close, I ask every guest this signature question for this Still Human podcast as well. As AI becomes more present in our lives and work, where do you feel still being human matter most?
Where do I what?
Where do you feel being still human matter most?
Ah, I think what we're lacking right now, again, I think my approach to solve it is the only way I can think to do it on scale is you're always going to have bad actors. And when you build systems just for bad actors and you focus there, life gets really narrow,
Mm,
life gets really boring, life feels really unfair, dignity erodes, and all of those things that go with that.
mm,
And I think that there's this concept of constructing um, a rebirth of humanity that looks a lot different than where we are right now, and using this technology to uplift a much larger segment of our population. And I think do that in a way where basic civics should count, right? And uh, we can not agree with each other and still respect one another. And we've gone into our own corners right now to the detriment of quality of life, right? And I'd be lying if I said it doesn't impact me. It's impacted, folks in my family that have a different political view than I do. And it's not so much the political view, that's normal. It's the person and the lack of character, the
mm.
lack of one iota of morality that exists in the most powerful man in the world is a really hard situation that we're in.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Like that's who our country voted for. But it does say a lot about the state of consciousness, like of this
Mhm.
country, and that is both tragic, but also where there's tragedy, there's opportunity. And just ask yourself this question: what kind of fucking country are we when our two best candidates were Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Like, what does that say right there? Right. So, like, there's lots of things that should change. Right.
Mhm.
And I listen to like Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, what that city's been through, and the energy. Just talking about him now, like, just sends electricity through my body. Right. And I remember
Mhm.
hearing like Barack Obama's first real speech at the National Democratic Convention when he just became a senator, and spent a lot of time working on his first campaign because I believed in like we're coming off of like literally Iraq, Afghanistan, 5,000 Americans lost their life to needless war. Not one senator or House of Representative had a son that served over there. Yet we send people in harm's way,
Mhm.
and I just think like the thinking and the problem that you have is that it's so easy to manipulate people in this world. Psychology ops dominate media. And literally it's just like a massive like um game of like wealth that shapes reality and can buy elections and can buy policy. And and the downside of that is where, basically like wealth outpaces dignity and wealth outpaces the rule of law where the system is different for different people. And that's what causes great empires to fail, and anxiety, and economies not to work, and quality of life um, to erode. And I think like there's certain basic rights that we should have. Like
Hmm.
people should have affordable health care. And like it shouldn't be based on who's got the bigger bank account, right?
Hmm.
You should pay into that,
Hmm.
uh, your social security program, et cetera. And I just think that there's a way where um, we can just create a better society. And I think this technology can be used in ways that can transform our society and can transform this moment in time, because there's so much we can do with it.
Hmm.
And just thinking about how to use that in a way where um, you can uplift 9 billion people
Yeah.
or 8 billion plus, right? And those things are, they're not mutually exclusive. Like two things
Hmm.
can be true at the same time. So I have hope. And as I said, like having this conversation, my interactions with students is I will always carve out time because I enjoy it. I learn. The questions you're asking are giving me a window into the future, right?
Hmm.
So if I didn't have this conversation, like I have one perspective, like kind of what I'm thinking today, right? I meet different people, I get different perspectives, different
Yeah.
acculturation, right?
Yeah.
And if we can just basically have that kind of dialogue, even with disagreements, and just agree to be civil with one another,
Yeah.
not punitive, not hate one another, shoot and murder each other, uh, put people in jail, pepper spray them, like all the bad things that we do. And there are fringes of society that should be locked up, that should be locked up for life, right? That should be incarcerated. People that have murdered or raped or have done really bad things, they should pay the price for that.
Hmm.
But again, two things can be true. You can be a human being, and part of that is like making and focusing on delivering and creating a society that can provide, the most happiness and the highest quality of life.
I
Those are all possible.
Yeah, I can't agree with you anymore. Like, can't agree more than that. Like, it's you point out the fundamental problems of our society and everything. Like, it's all very complicated when it's like can simplify things and going very straightforward. But anyways, I'm so glad that you could be on this podcast. And I'm really honored and really cherish you be on this podcast because you are one of the very first like big guests that I could invite so far.
Oh
And
man, wow,
yeah,
that's
I'm
awesome.
really honored. I'm really honored, 100%.
Well, man,
And
thanks so much. Like I said, it's an honor on my side too. One, that my perspective is of interest to you and your audience.
yeah,
This music to
100%.
my ears. It music to my ears. So yeah, hopefully you can do future stuff. We'd like to get up to
Yeah.
FDSU in the near future, and let's have another tea ceremony.
Yeah, 100%. So for the audience listening to this podcast, if they want to connect with you or like, talks about what you're working on, where can they find you easily?
Let's see here. I'm pretty active on my LinkedIn page, so that's easy. Or go to Toby Toby at BrandCapsule.io.
Okay. BrandCapsule. That's your the startup you're working on right
Yeah,
now, right?
yeah, exactly. We're doing some really
Awesome.
cool stuff, building a
Awesome.
signed brand identity layer, and working on a magical, decision intelligence platform that shapes your brand to AI discovery, and that's a
You
really
know,
cool problem to solve.
if you're looking for any, media creative, I can do. I will be here too. If you need
All right,
any like stuff like that.
those are areas that are not in my core talent quiver right now. Maybe someday. Maybe someday you can give me some lessons.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you for your
take
time
care.
too.
All right,
Bye bye.
have a great weekend.
You too.
That was Toby Corey. After 3 decades at the heart of tech, Toby's message is clear. Your time is your only real asset. Before we go, remember these lessons from the front lines. First, find your gamma state. Stop drowning in the noise of notification. Find the flow state where true creativity lives. Second, it's the product, stupid. Don't get distracted by the hype. Just build something so excellent it solves a real human problem. Third, AI is your supercharger. Don't fear being replaced. Use these tools to handle the grunt work so you have the space to do what only a human can. Innovate. And finally, create your own path. Life is too short to follow someone else's footprint. Cut your own trail and live without the safe route regret. As Toby reminds us, be yourself because everyone else is already taken. Stay curious, stay bold, and most importantly, stay human. See you in the next episode. Bye.